Welcome to all of you throughout Africa. I wish that we were all together in Ghana because it was going to be such a great year and now everything's changed. But really looking forward to seeing you when all of this craziness is over. We can meet in person, have conversations, no technology required when we sit down and talk to each other from across the table, share a meal, and have a great time. I am here today to introduce a new film project produced by Atlas Network. It's called Upward Globility, and it showcases how people around the world are creating amazing opportunities when they're free to change the world. The first episode that we shot was shot in South Africa, and it showcases a groundbreaking project by the Free Market Foundation. It's called Khaya, which means my home, and it was started to help previously dispossessed families without legal rights to the land they occupy finally acquire title to their homes and to their land for the first time. So let's watch the video. It's about 8 minutes long. And then we'll hear from Vale Sloane, who is the host of the show. He's with Atlas Network, and many of you know him. He's waving at you right now with the cups on his ears. And Temba Nolutshungu of Free Market Foundation. He's the executive director, and he has been really one of the primary drivers of Khaya in this program that's making home ownership a reality for people throughout South Africa. So let's get the movie started, James, Lindy, whoever's in charge here, and enjoy.
The government has given this family this brick home, but they didn't give them the rights to live on it, the legal title. It wasn't even built for purpose in the sense that the family, as it's grown, has had to build this whole extra add-on structure. But now that they have their own title, they're going to be able to build it, expand it, and do it knowing that it's their land and no one can take it away from them. And it's really exciting seeing what that means for people. This is Vale Sloane here, researcher, adventurer, overall man of many talents. Welcome to my show, Upward Globility, where I travel the planet discovering amazing opportunities ordinary people can achieve when they're free to change the world. We're about 15 minutes out of Makwalo, Vredefort, which is a township an hour and a half outside Johannesburg. You only need to look outside the window to see that we've gone country and left the big smoke behind. But this is where the magic of Khaya happens. For years, local residents were denied the right to own their own properties simply because of the colour of their skin. But thanks to the Khaya project, we're going to see how that's been reversed. And today, meet some locals who are going to own the title to their land for the very first time.
In 1913, at the stroke of a pen, black people could not own land, could not own property. At the stroke of a pen, black property was nullified, and black people were not allowed to purchase property whatsoever. Black people became, in this country of their birth, hewers of wood and drawers of water. This is the historical background to the Khaya project. So we go to the private sector and individuals and to say to them, look, we want black people to own the houses that they have been living in for generations, just paying rent only. The consideration is also that we are aware as to economic significance of owning your own property. And you have faith, you have utmost faith in people being able to rise above their own socio-economic challenges.
Some people wanted to say that Khaya means my house, and we said, no, it doesn't mean your house. Your house is the place where you live. This means your home.
Well, we've made it to Makwalo. We're here with a team of local councillors, we're here with a team of FMF representatives, and we're going to meet some locals who are going to receive the titles to the land that they've been living on for generations.
It's a privilege to be able to do this work because it needs to be done, and if we don't do it, our country is going to head for failure. Why would somebody want a title deed to a shack? The reason they want the title deed is because then they can do something on that piece of ground that is theirs that nobody can ever take away from them.
Now we're going to meet Mrs. Mudlong. She's been renting this house her entire life. At the next house, Mrs. Mosalodi gives us a sneak peek inside. And so, now that you're going to build a new house, why didn't you build a new house until now?
I was waiting for title deed before. Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
And it's all yours now. You can build that house.
I'm free now.
That's great.
And I'm happy.
Well, I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. One can come here and say, tell you this and that. Yes, you know.
It's a beautiful house you've got here. And really, thank you for having us inside.
You're gonna sleep peaceful. Knowing that you left your children where they are safe, yes. No one will chase your children away.
How do you feel after that title presentation? What does it mean to you?
Sir, I'm so excited. On a Women's Month, we just giving a woman a title deed when we close a Women's Month. I'm very much happy.
Oh, yeah.
More than happy.
Mrs. Mohalotsa has raised 3 generations of family in this home. Great to meet you. Hello.
Thank you. That title deed ya how that's in She doesn't even have words to explain.
Wow.
How happy she is.
Well, congratulations. I think it's just amazing, and you can see how much people care about the land they live on, understandably, when you see a vegetable garden like this. You've got spinach, you've got onions, you've got everything for a nice, healthy, nutritious meal. But notice there's no irrigation system, there's no hose. They're here, they're watering it themselves, they're going to the effort to make their home feel like home. Lastly, we will meet Mr. Modice, who has never owned a piece of property in his life.
Last time when I met Khaya, I see all the community, they become very happy.
Yes.
Every time when they do these things. I didn't expect this, but I'm so happy today.
Well, I can honestly say that I never expected to be in one living room in Mokwalo, South Africa, let alone 7 of them. But wow, what an experience. I mean, to see the way people's faces light up when they're given the title to the homes that they've been living in for years, sometimes generations. You can't help but be impressed. You can't help but be humbled. And I got to tell you, it takes a lot of guts to work as hard as they have against years of injustice to make their home their home.
So as a result of our work, I'm hoping that eventually there will be 10 million pieces of land owned by black South Africans, which will be worth about 1 trillion rand, which, to give some idea of size, is about the size of the annual budget of South Africa. This is the amount of wealth already held by black people but not owned by black people.
Mandela had said in his book, The Long Walk to Freedom, a man is not a man until he has a house of his own.
Well, that's it from me. I'm Vale Sloane, and this has been Upward Globility South Africa edition. Hit like or subscribe for more top banter and content. See you around like a rissole, and catch you next time. What do you think about Khaya? How would you want this project to grow? Will I ever stop asking questions in this voice? Leave your comments below.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing it, guys. Thank you, Vale. Thank you, Temba. I hope you all enjoyed it. one thing I want to point out is the video is at Atlas Network's website, atlasnetwork.org. It is also on YouTube, and you can use the captions function to be able to listen to read the information about the video in your native language using the captions on YouTube. But this really is an astonishing project, Temba. One of the women who gets title in the video says, "I'm free now." And that says to me so much about owning a home, because we all know that property rights are an essential component of human rights. And so this has made such a difference for so many people. But a statement like that also assumes that there is a functional rule of law. In South Africa, the rule of law changes depending on the whim of who's ever in leadership. So what is the current state of protections of the rule of law in South Africa right now? Vale, let me go to you then and find out, like, you were there on the ground with the filming. What are some of the memorable things that you took away from your experience being part of this project?
Yeah, I got to say it was super humbling to be so welcome in Makwalo. Every house we went to, people were just so warm and welcoming. Here I was, a stranger. They inviting me into their living rooms, their bedrooms, showing me their houses, and it was just great. And to see firsthand what the title deed meant for these families, you know, that was really the most powerful thing, I have to say, Melissa. In that, you know, people, you know, wanted to give their children something, some, you know, property, something tangible where they were raising them, and they had not had that opportunity, whether legally in the past under apartheid or even in more recent decades. The system was so bureaucratic and still is so bureaucratic that it was a real challenge to get those title deeds. And that's why Khaya is so powerful to me, coming in and seeing it firsthand. It's connecting people with the rights to own the land that they've already been living on for decades. And seeing, as some people pointed out in the comments, the smiles on people's faces and how much this meant was just so powerful, because it takes the work that, you know, think tanks do, and as important as it is, white papers can be dry, you know, talking head videos can be dry, and trying to educate people on these issues is important. But when you see firsthand the impact in changing lives on the ground, I mean, you can't beat it. It's incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I found that I like about this particular style of video is that you as the host have the opportunity to guide the story, right? To take the story into people's homes and to really have conversations with them. And I noticed that you seem to interact with a lot of women. Is that something that was common with this project that you saw? Were there a lot of women, families? How did that shake out?
Yeah, definitely. It was a great stroke of timing. As is mentioned in the video, that it was actually International Women's Month when we were in Makwalo. And a lot of the women that I got the chance to meet spoke of their kind of maternal instinct. They even referred to it as that, talking about how they wanted to, you know, give their children a home, and they didn't feel like it was really their home until they owned it with the title deed. And that was something really powerful to just hear about firsthand. Something that really struck me, Melissa, was, and you can see it in the video, walking into a lot of these houses, you know, the pride and care and the modern amenities and the beautiful furnishings that people have are all there. These are their homes. This is where they're raising their families, and they are rightfully proud of them. But there was a real fear until receiving the title deed of doing anything to the house or its exterior, because of the concerns that, well, I don't own this land. Someone can take it away from me. And so they would do everything they could to make it a beautiful place to live, short of changing the actual house, because of that uncertainty, because of that legal ownership of the land. So seeing the Free Market Foundation, Temba, his colleagues, work through Khaya to give the people that last piece of the puzzle almost, to really 100% go all in on building their homes and making it exactly the place where they want to raise a family, build a future. It's super inspiring, really powerful stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. Temba, I want to check in with you. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Oh, Melissa, wow.
Temba, are you able to hear us?
I can hardly hear you.
We can hear you just fine, so that's at least a good thing for us. So if you can hear me, is there a way that you might be able to discuss some of the issues surrounding land expropriation currently in South Africa?
Khaya is the single most important project that the Free Market Foundation has ever embarked upon. In the socio-economic arena, it is the most significant one, coming either from the private sector or from the public sector, meaning the government. In that, at the stroke of a pen, Black people, that is constituting 70% of the population, they were denied property rights from 1913 onwards in terms of the Natives Land Act. That act had resulted in Black people being economically emasculated. So they were prevented from owning property. Their property had been expropriated. And now, after about 76 years, the situation has changed completely. We have a property rights clause in the Constitution that is very, very strong, and the Free Market Foundation was instrumental, played a crucial role in terms of having that enshrined in the Constitution. Now, what we did as the Free Market Foundation, in order to try to address the sins of the past, so to speak, that were caused by the colonial government, British colonial government, and then the apartheid system. What we tried to do was to undo that and then to implement a property ownership project. Khaya means home. And in terms of the Khaya brief, what we do is, with all these houses that Black people have been living in purely on an occupancy tenant basis, we transfer those into full titled ownership properties. So being owned by the families that have been living on those properties, owned by the government, have been living in them for generations. And so Khaya has enabled a situation where at the end of the day, with our work, what used to be a government-owned property becomes now a property that is owned privately by the people who have been living in those houses. Now, the beauty of the project is that, here we have a situation where you have property that's been occupied, which has no economic significance whatsoever. At the stroke of a pen, in terms of Fernando de Soto's thesis, once it is legally owned, legally titled, then it becomes an economic asset, which becomes part of the economy. Now, what happens there, as we all know, the logic of ownership of property is that you want to see the property's value improving, being enhanced. And so as a consequence of the Khaya project that results in people having legal title to the land, to the property, they start to make all sorts of improvements to the properties. And so in the process, what happens is that acts as a catalyst for what I call economic, social self-empowerment. That's what it is. So there's no government involved whatsoever, no subsidies, no money thrown into this project at taxpayers' expense. It is through their own efforts that people are able to add, say, another room to the house. And in some cases, people demolish entire structures and build anew. Now, this takes time, but at the end of the day, it becomes their property, everything that they own. Now, the beauty of this is that it is a kind of microcosm of the free market, in that you have all sorts of artisans being employed. It is building contractors, it is bricklayers, it is plasterers, it is all sorts of people, artisans, who in turn employ their own people who might not have any skills whatsoever. And these people being employed you have this situation where there is this economy that's taking place in terms of the free market paradigm. No government involvement whatsoever, no regulations being involved, but at the end of the day, you're talking about the hard economic asset that the family or the owner owns at the end of the day, and that becomes part of the economy. That's the beauty of this. Now, the thing is, there are problems along the way, and currently what looms large that the current project faces is the amendment to the constitution that is being proposed by Parliament that threatens the strength of the property rights clause. It actually nullifies it. If it were to succeed, it would nullify it completely, which would mean that all properties in South Africa would be nationalized legally and could be expropriated. That's what it means at the end of the day, because that amendment to the constitution is known as expropriation of land without compensation. There will be no compensation whatsoever. And so the Free Market Foundation is pulling up all its resources and focusing on trying to neutralize that proposed amendment to the Constitution as it stands. As I've mentioned, the Constitution, in terms of protecting private property rights, is very, very strong indeed. It provides, for example, that just in the Bill of Rights, it provides that there will be no one will be deprived of property unless it's in terms of a law of general application. And no law will permit for the arbitrary deprivation of property. There are all sorts of provisions in the Constitution in terms of the property rights clause as it is at the moment. And where there is a necessity for expropriation of property, it is all in the public interest, and it is all subject to many, many provisions, one of them being very important, and that is the whole situation will be adjudicated by a court of law, and that the property, the value of the property that was being contemplated in terms of confiscation, the compensation will be in terms of the market value of the property. There are other provisions currently in the Constitution in terms of safeguarding people's properties. That is what is important. Now, other challenges that we're faced with, that we have been dealing with, and we're coming up on top of these in general terms, have been the bureaucratic, municipal, especially at that level, regulatory impediments to fast-tracking the process of Khaya in terms of people having titled ownership. That's one of the problems. And so from just being facilitators of people having properties that are legally titled, we are now involved in also changing laws, as I've mentioned, impacting on the regulatory encumbrances that stand in the way of the process being accelerated.
Temba, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Temba?
I hear you.
I'm going to ask a question in the box, and maybe you can hear this. But while I'm doing that, Vale, there were some real issues with the filming. If you remember that our director got stuck in Johannesburg. Can you share that little story with people? And I'm going to put a question in the box.
I'm losing you there.
It's a good, quick story about interesting challenges in filming that can crop up when you least expect it. Our director had unfortunately not been vaccinated against yellow fever prior to his arrival in South Africa at Johannesburg Airport, which is, of course, an obligatory vaccine for entry into the country. So he got to spend the night in a detention cell at Johannesburg Airport and enjoy those accommodations before being placed on a plane and returned to the United States. So luckily on the ground, we partnered with two fantastic filmmakers through the Free Market Foundation and put together this excellent video, and our director managed to edit it back here in the United States. But it was certainly an eventful 24 hours wondering what the direction of the project was going to look like I am not a filmmaker, Melissa. As you well know, I love being in front of the camera, but necessarily putting it together is a bit of a challenge. So thank goodness for the FMF team being quick on their feet, and of course your help on the back end. But my takeaway for you all is check the vaccine regulations before landing in a foreign country. It doesn't hurt.
I think that's as I think we all experienced, making a film has a lot of challenges that you never expect. And to any of our partners who are thinking about filmmaking, always remember to expect the worst, because you never know when it's going to happen. And when your director is in an airport jail in Johannesburg, you realize that things can go awry very quickly. Temba, can you hear me at all? We put some questions in the box for you, starting with how other countries in Africa might be able to learn from the experience that South Africa has had with land rights. Can you see it in the box? I am so sorry that this is happening. Now, you're on mute now, Temba, so we can't hear you. James, is there any way that you can take it, so that you can take a look at your phone?
I've sent him the call-in instructions on his telephone on
the
WhatsApp.
Call-in instructions are on your phone, Temba. That may help us to be able to hear you better. Again, as we were just saying, go ahead and talk, Temba. We can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. Oh, I think he's on mute again. As I was just saying, one of the issues with technology is that everything's going to go wrong at some point. So that kind of happens occasionally. Temba, can you hear Temba?
Melissa?
Yes, we can hear you. Or we could. James, can you fix that?
I'm giving him a call now.
Okay.
Hey, Temba, it's James.
So, Vale,
I sent you the call-in instructions. You can call into the session on your phone.
There. So, while he's working on that particular problem, Vale, so was this the first time you'd ever been in South Africa?
It was, absolutely. It will definitely not be the last. I love Johannesburg. I want to see Cape Town. I've got to get back. And like I said, the hospitality was amazing. So I'm very excited to come back and see Temba and our friends at the Free Market Foundation soon. One of the cameramen actually gave me a giant bag of biltong, the dried meat from one of his hunting trips. And because I couldn't take it on the plane, biltong?
Yeah.
It's kind of, like beef jerky. I ate the whole bag before I got on the plane. So I tell you, I got to go back. I missed it a lot.
There was a Facebook discussion about bushmeat that I joined in on. And by the way, there is also a Facebook group for Africa Liberty Forum. So if you are on Facebook, this is a great opportunity to go to the Africa Liberty Forum, Atlas Network's Africa Liberty Forum Facebook page. There's lots of things to continue the discussion about. Big Daddy Liberty and Magat Wade in the last conversation had a lot to say about the future of prosperity throughout the continent. And it's a great place to continue that discussion. Temba,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
let me just say a couple of things here that relate to the Khaya project. So many of the people participating in this webinar might know more about the Khaya project. Currently, we've done more than 10,000, close to about 20,000 titles. That means units, of houses that have been titled. So those houses have now become homes. And we are looking at a situation where in South Africa, there is something like this is now an educated guesstimate, but on the conservative side, there's something between 5 and 7 million eligible units. That means houses where people are still living in them on a tenancy basis. And these are people who aspire to having full ownership of those properties. So the challenge is very big. However, we're moving as fast as we can. And I stated that there are all these regulatory encumbrances that we have to overcome. They are the ones that are slowing us. And so we try to get things fast-tracked. Now, currently, one of the problems that we're faced with, which afflicts everybody, I think, throughout the world, is the fact that the COVID-19 fears have occasioned administrative inefficiencies, especially with the deeds office in South Africa, for example. We work very closely with the Central Deeds Office in terms of doing away with all those regulatory encumbrances to people getting their title deeds as fast as possible. So that's an ongoing thing. And so that means that we are involved, having moved slightly away from just simply facilitating, the transfer of titles from government to people, that we are looking at, we have started to influence policy in terms of, pushing cases and allocating cases for some of the identified regulatory programs to be removed. That's what we're doing. Now the thing is, as part of the Khaya project, we are the Free Market Foundation here, that for whom this is a flagship project. And then we have law firms that are highly specialized in terms of conveyancing. And so we had motivated those law firms to come on board on the basis of lowering their standard commercial fees, and they have done so. And the fee that they charge is now a quarter of what they normally charge for conveyancing purposes. And that fee amounts to 2,500 rands. In dollar terms, that is $146 for the conveyancing fee. And with that in mind, we go to the private sector and individuals and motivate a case for them to sponsor title deeds on the basis of $146 per unit. And many have come on board, and so we're able to do this kind of work, thanks to the contributions from all sorts of people and businesses, big and small and so on, informal businesses as well. And that is what keeps us going as the Khaya project. Now, the other thing is that is also important about this project is, remember I've mentioned that it is a catalyst for economic self-empowerment, not only just that, but that it precipitates a cauldron of economic activity that involves plasterers, bricklayers, plumbers, welders, and electricians who install electricity in those homes. That's very important. Now, the thing that statist-oriented politicians do not like, or statist governments or socialists do not like about this project is the fact that this is a project that changes people from being have-nots to becoming haves. So the people becoming haves, so we pull the carpet from underneath all those people who've been saying all these superficial nice things about, well, the people are exploited, the people are have-not kind of thing. It really nullifies that nonsensical argument totally and effectively. That's the essence of the Khaya project.
That is really amazing to hear. And I appreciate that perspective at the end, particularly when you think about how many stakeholders are involved in this project, how many people it takes to bring together a coalition of people who are engaged in the advancement of economic freedom.
Gosh.
It makes a huge difference. Temba, I'm sorry that we had technological problems, but it was great to hear from you because you have so much interesting information to share about the development of Khaya. And let's continue the conversation on Facebook or wherever. Get in touch with each other, get in touch with Vale, get in touch with me, get in touch with FMF to continue this conversation because you have so many great questions that I'm sorry that we can't get to. Because at this point, our day together is drawing to a close. And I just want to thank all of you for joining Atlas Network for wonderful conversations today. Fascinating presentations from Big Daddy Liberty, from Magat Wade, from people from all over Africa. It was really, for me, always interesting to hear from the team at Center for Development and Enterprises Great Lakes, because I think they're doing such great work. Freya Sanga at Nikafu, really amazing stuff. Today, we've talked about the roots of African freedom, the challenges of dealing with COVID-19, the possibilities that free enterprise raises across the continent. Your participation and thoughts about this are so valuable. We really appreciate getting to hear what you think. For us, it's a privilege to be involved in the work that you all are doing to advance liberty across the continent. So thank you so much for being part of this today. We look forward to tomorrow. You'll get an email with more information from James and Chelsea.